So James Comey has been indicted, and we're supposed to all think that's a terrible, terrible thing. It's the NewsBusters podcast. I'm Tim Graham, your executive editor. Joining me today is associate editor Nick Night Train Fondacaro and senior research analyst Bill D'Agostino. No nickname for you yet.
No, I don't need one. Nobody can pronounce my last name. That's my nickname.
D'Agostino. How many different variants are there?
The worst one I got was D'Agusto, I think, or D'Agusto, something like that. It was on radio a couple weeks ago. It was bad.
It's sort of like when we do radio shows or TV shows, and they go, "Is here for the Media Research Council."
Yeah, that's
And
always nice.
you have to strain yourself not to correct it.
Right.
Like, okay, nice try.
Or like if we get a Fox pickup where they say Media Research Council, and it's like, do we show this to anyone? Do we get to brag about it?
You got the name wrong. All right, so James Comey is indicted, and the news media are running around screaming authoritarianism. Who knew? Who could expect such a thing? So obviously this was one of those things. Let's start with Nick's favorite, Jake Tapper, who had Speaker Mike Johnson on, and Mike Johnson just took him apart. But my joke was sort of like, well, you can totally predict what's going to be said. It's CNN.
Right.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, of course, Tapper's all like, aren't you very concerned that this is authoritarianism, la, la, la? And he's like, no, let me explain it to you. James Comey was, this is the best spin. James Comey represented the weaponization of the Justice Department.
Right.
Oh, exactly. And especially when they keep sort of generally overlooking the fact that he got indicted by a jury of his peers in Alexandria, of all places, a place that I live that is very liberal.
Yeah.
So the fact that even that liberals saw the evidence that was being presented and said, there might be something here, let's proceed.
I think that one of the things, they said things obviously that were true. One of the things they loved to say was, well, the U.S. attorney now is a beauty queen who used to be his personal lawyer. And it's like, and she doesn't have any prosecutorial experience. And I'm like, that is all true. It's also Trump just setting it up the way he wants to. Fine. But
it's also okay, so if she doesn't have any prosecutorial experience, then she'll be terrible and you'll be happy, right? But if that's the premise, is that she's totally unqualified, then okay, then the weaponization won't succeed, right? But did you guys see that incredible clip that I don't know where Mays finds this stuff, but you guys see that clip that he found this weekend of Comey talking about the J6 people?
Yep.
Yes.
He said anybody who, even if they just went inside the building, even if you're only guilty of a misdemeanor, we will hunt you down to the ends of the earth and prosecute relentlessly, something like that.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal, right? Because I don't think that there's even anybody arguing in the media that like, well, no, he didn't lie under oath. It's like, well, you can't prosecute James Comey for lying under oath. That's basically what they're saying. It's like, well, you can't prosecute anybody for committing a crime if Donald Trump hates him. That's weaponization.
And the obvious answer that many people said on Twitter was, Peter Navarro and Bannon were put behind bars for refusing to testify under oath.
Right.
Exactly.
So, look, people always say to us, especially about Nick, how can you stand to sit and watch these shows like The View? How can you sit through all of that? And it's like, we get I think we have days where it's like, The View is boring. He's disappointed they weren't insane.
Yeah.
But this is one of the things where I'm normally very calm. That one of the things that sends me up a wall is like, the Justice Department was so independent under Biden.
Right, like shut up.
Shut
up.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that you deliberately missed everything that Merrick Garland was doing doesn't mean that it didn't happen. And it's the same as saying that Obama had a scandal-free presidency.
Right.
Yeah, and also this is we'll probably get into this later with some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. But with the Christopher Wray FBI, you had all this stuff about there's worried about the weaponization, or at least it wasn't weaponized under him until Patel came along. But under Wray, you had him apparently allegedly lying to Congress about the FBI going into and observing Catholic churches and sending informants in there and people pretending to be parishioners to try to nail these Catholic churches to the wall.
Well, these were all the things that they didn't consider unprecedented authoritarian. The raid on Mark Hark's home because he was mean at a pro-life protest.
Exactly.
Right. They came into a house with guns and scared the children. That made no sense. And they were all like, well, that's not a story.
Right.
And of course, the raid on Mar-a-Lago. You know, and
the
obviously
raid that wasn't a raid according to them, but then suddenly when it's Bolton's house, it's a raid again.
Remember that they get so angry whenever they weaponize law enforcement to do something. They get so angry about the terminology. Like, do you remember the wiretapping too with spying on? They were like, no spying. You can't say spying. Spying is not a term of art. Spying is a conspiracy theory, right? And then same with raid. They were like, don't call it a raid. That's offensive to FBI agents. Well, and like, are you a protected class now? What?
Well, we've had this development over the weekend that it turns out there were 274 FBI agents on the scene at January 6th at some point during the riot.
Plain clothes, by the way.
But Christopher Wray always refused to try to lay out, we're not talking about how many people were down there. But I guess I only raise this to the extent that, yes, somehow they're never weaponized under Biden. And then them prosecuting 1,000+ people, including the people who were just walking around,
including people that never entered the building, by the way.
And that was the Biden Justice Department. If you want to say it's unprecedented that Biden never went after his political foes, well, that was over 1,000 of Biden's political foes.
I'm sorry, when you have the FBI raiding Mar-a-Lago and Trump getting his mugshot taken, you don't get to say unprecedented anymore. You don't. Like that's it. It's off the table, and that's so painfully obvious that it almost feels stupid to even bring up. You know, like it's so blatant.
So David Remnick went on Meet the Press, editor of The New Yorker. Used to be I think for a long time, he was a foreign correspondent for The Washington Post. Then he became editor of The New Yorker. Now, for me, David Remnick, it always starts and ends with, he wrote a book about Obama. He loves Obama. He loves Obama so deeply. And he had this quote in his book where Valerie Jarrett said, I think he's never really been challenged intellectually. He's been bored to death his whole life. He's just too talented to do what ordinary people do.
Oh, my God.
That's David Remnick. So now, of course, you indict Comey. He goes on Meet the Press and said the second term, it's ruthless. The movement toward authoritarianism is very distinct. And it's like, it's D and Y. Yeah. You know,
yes.
So it's just sickening the way that journalists somehow don't count as partisans when we all know they are.
Exactly.
I mean, that brings in the whole argument of like, what, are we partisans? And I would say, well, yeah, kind of, because we're politically motivated. We are an explicitly conservative organization. I think that's where the bias issue is frustrating, is because they insist up and down that they're not biased, right? Like so often I'll publish something about like, broadcast networks or whatever, and somebody will be like, oh, now do Fox News. And it's like, okay, A, they're a cable network. B, I don't think that anybody working at Fox News would tell you, no, nobody here has a political agenda. Right, like,
and we would always count ourselves in anybody else's count. We are conservatives.
Yeah,
right.
We would do that. It's just that journalists go, oh no, they do this thing. I think one of the points Larry O'Connor's been making is like, yeah, you have one of these panels on Meet the Press where there's one sort of Republican. Let's throw Steve Hayes in if we're doing Meet the Press.
Sure,
he's the so-called Republican, and then you have, Boston Globe columnist, the New York Times columnist, the editor of the New Yorker, and they go, oh. That's one conservative and 3 nonpartisans. I mean,
right. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
This is sort of the game that they play. Now, Steve Hayes went on Washington Week with The Atlantic, and actually, Jeffrey Goldberg, the moderator of the show, actually was like, well, this is unprecedented. And Steve Hayes goes, no, it's not. JFK named his brother Attorney General, and so on and so forth. And the Biden people were this and that. And it's like, Steve Hayes will never be on the show again.
Right.
Yeah.
You can see the cane like poking in the frame.
Just like take him.
He's like, shut up.
But yeah, that show in general is so remarkably one-sided. Now, do we know how this is going to turn out? I don't think we do.
No.
But I think the news media coverage is all designed to say, we're all here to try to make sure this gets thrown out as quickly as possible.
Yes, yes,
exactly.
That's what needs to be focused on. Is like that's the outcome that they are trying to engineer.
Yeah.
They are trying to affect a political outcome.
Exactly. And like we don't know the outcome of this, but they're absolutely certain about what it is, which is like the weaponization and like the revenge tour. Even though I see a lot of people pointing out, it's like revenge for what? Revenge for what? Like
Right, exactly.
Exactly. And we just saw this a couple of cycles ago with Jimmy Kimmel, where they were absolutely certain that this was the government playing a hand and he was never going to be able to speak and have a show ever again, and suddenly he has a show again. And it's like, well, obviously it was just the Sinclair and Nexstar being like, our watchers don't want to see this.
Right, it was
and we're
pressure from affiliates. It wasn't-
exactly.
Yeah.
But they were absolutely certain that this was part of Trump's revenge tour once again. But then obviously it turns out obviously not anything to do with that at all.
It's like a kid who's like red-faced, screaming, tears running down his face, and the second you say like, okay, yeah, you can have ice cream, it just immediately like all smiles, sunshine, and it's like, okay, so that really wasn't traumatic at all. You were just throwing a tantrum.
So Curtis Houck pointed out that Jake Tapper had this whole story with Anderson Cooper, like they did an hour on Kimmel. He was suspended for 4 days. It was like he was sent to the gulag. I mean, it's just the over dramatization of that is absolutely remarkable. And again, then at the center of all this was him lying his face off about the motivation of the shooter, that somehow the guy was MAGA, and that all gets put aside.
The fact that there were people on national television claiming that that's not what he said. Right, like Oliver Darcy. And then who was it? Was it Ana Cabrera who was like, well, yeah, it was really hard to figure out what he meant. Shut up. Shut up.
I think that was Casey Hunt, but Ana Cabrera was one of them.
Casey Hunt did it too.
I think a little bit of that, but I think you were right. Was
Casey? You're terrible.
Yeah, Ana Cabrera was like a big pusher of that, where she's like, we don't know what he actually meant. Like as if as a journalist you don't listen to words and react.
This
or
is why
understand what they're saying.
Right? Yeah, they can divine every slight little tick in Donald Trump's speech and determine that he's signaling his Nazi base with this. You know, But yeah, saying something as explicit as what Kimmel said, well, who knows what that means? That could mean anything.
They can hear all the dog whistles in the world, but they can't listen to plain language.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's sort of like the way that these people now, when we have shooters, or now we had this over the weekend with the horrible, like, ramming your car into a Mormon church and opening fire.
Disgusting.
And some people on Twitter are already trying to say the guy's MAGA. Other people said he hates Trump. And that becomes the immediate debate. But what we've seen with Tyler Robinson, we saw this now with the Dallas ICE shooter, where he's not liberal. Just because the bullet casings say left-wing things doesn't mean he's left-wing.
Well, yeah, the angle there was people were saying, he shot illegal aliens. Obviously, he's not a liberal. And he was shooting at a moving ICE vehicle.
Yeah.
He couldn't see inside. He was trying to hit agents, and he didn't.
Yeah, hit everything but what he wanted to.
Right. Good job, idiot.
In these cases, when they go further into looking at the writings or the scribblings of these people, they find out, they're leftists. They have left-wing motivations.
Yeah.
So now Michelle Goldberg wrote a column for the New York Times where she was trying to say, well, no, they're just like internet rage heads that aren't really left-wing. I mean, they are, but they're not. You know, I mean,
so the shooters are not.
So they have left-wing opinions, but you don't you don't get to use that to score points against the left. Okay, this doesn't count.
Yeah, like the shooters are somehow not political, but also at the same time we have to turn down rhetoric because it leads to political violence like this, but somehow it's also not political.
And it's all Trump's rhetoric. It's all Trump's.
Yeah.
Well, and that is the other thing, and that is that it's ruthless authoritarianism when somebody gets fired for saying, good, Charlie Kirk's dead.
Right.
And it's like, I'm sorry, if you say really nasty things on social media, you ought to, like, before you push the button, should think about whether that's going to hurt you.
Especially if you are in a medical or education position. I don't want you around kids or the sick or the elderly.
Or being in charge of keeping us alive with the medical field.
Exactly. If you think it's awesome that somebody died for being, pro-life and anti-DEI, no, then like get out of your nurse scrubs. It's over. Like head over to Starbucks and find a job. You don't
Learn
get to take care
barista.
of right. You don't get to take care of people if you think that half of the country deserves to die for thinking things that you don't like.
Exactly.
Then you get in trouble at Starbucks because somebody said that their coffee's for Charlie Kirk, and they're
That's
like,
right.
I'm not writing that on the cup.
Right. And then you shuffle over to Dunkin' Donuts and you're like, yeah, sorry.
They just whip the coffee at you.
All right, so let's shift, since we're talking about political violence. That's something that you guys are both experts in, Antifa. And Bill, you made a video last week. I like the headline where you said the corporate media's inexcusably cozy relationship with Antifa. And that's where you're like, this is the ironic thing. They're corporations, and yet they seem to hate capitalism. It's just something weird about the whole thing.
Well, I mean, the thing about Marxism that a lot of people kind of miss is that, like, the material dialectic of, like, bourgeois and proletariat is sort of was sort of deemed dead by neo-Marxist thinkers, like Herbert Marcuse. Basically, he looked at Hungary and he was like, okay, it's not working here. Why is it not working here? And he realized, okay, capitalism is actually, like, it's working too well for the working class. Like, the term that he used was stabilized. They are too stable in this environment to have what he called revolutionary energy, which means to ever be prone to supporting, like, a violent upheaval and overthrowing of the system to install a Marxist paradise. So we have to focus on, like, we have to find a different revolutionary class, which is the marginalized, right? That whenever you hear marginalized, that's basically, that's the origin of that. Whether or not the person using the term knows that that's where it's coming from, that's where it's coming from.
They always say they have to center the marginalized.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is capitalism is working too well. They're actually the needs of these people are being met too well for them to want to upend it to go with something else.
Right, exactly. No, that's, I mean, he basically said that outright.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he's like blatantly very honest about, like, okay, look, this isn't really about economic justice. It's about tearing down Western civilization.
Yeah.
That's really what this is.
Well,
And
people
so,
can say that explicitly.
Yeah.
Right? Like Mahmoud Khalil. You can explicitly say, we are here to end Western civilization.
Right.
We can say death to America. And our news media says, well, they don't really mean death to America.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I think we should kind of take them seriously. You know, if somebody said death to Chuck Todd, I think he would not go, oh, they're kidding.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean, it's so you made a video which sort of underlines several of the threads that you find the most annoying. Let's just take a look at that.
He's scared of this fictitious idea of Antifa, a thing that doesn't even exist.
Antifa does not even really exist as a coherent organization in any traditional sense.
Antifa, though, I've just been hearing about for years, this kind of amorphous concept.
Antifa, which literally stands for anti-fascist, aren't anything remotely close to organized crime. They're decentralized movements.
Antifa, the anti-fascist, it's not even really a movement, the anti-fascist tactics of a portion of the protest movement.
It is not an organization, it's an ideology.
Antifa is more of an ideology than an organization.
This term Antifa, they're trying to use it to scare people so that they don't stand up against hate.
And Antifa isn't any kind of organization the way that QAnon has now spread in this insidious group doing things.
There's no organization to it. It's a movement and an ideology.
Antifa is one of those things that, I don't want to say the right, but somebody came up with as a catchphrase so that you could say, you know, oh, there is violence on the other side.
I don't think there's any the problem, like, I don't even know what Antifa is. Antifa is a far-left political movement that argues it's necessary to confront hate groups, sometimes with force. You are writing this book, Antifa, the Anti-Fascist Handbook.
It says it right in the name, Antifa, anti-fascism, which is what they were there fighting. Listen, there's, no organization is perfect. There was some violence.
Most of the Antifa people are peaceful.
When someone comes to call out bigots and it gets hot, even physical, are they equally wrong as the bigot they are fighting? I argue no.
The Antifa movement and so on are interested in preserving the fabric of America.
Think of what you want about Antifa. Antifa literally means anti-fascism. They're fighting fascism.
Their favorite boogeyman, Antifa, a.k.a. anti-fascists.
We're going to talk to a counter-protester. She says even the extreme left, the Antifa counter-protesters, likely saved lives, including people she was with.
So, Bill, you categorize this in two ways, the stupid defense and the mendacious defense.
Yeah, and the stupid defense is like the stuff that you see like 200 follower Blue Anon accounts using on X, which is, well, they're called anti-fascists, so how can they be bad? Do you like fascism? And the only proper response to that is, okay, shut up, go away. Like we're talking.
Well, some people with larger Twitter accounts than that did that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Chris Cuomo has done that, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's you. I don't even want to have to explain why that's wrong. I feel like I've talked about this with you on the podcast before, but when I was an assistant coach, there was this. It was wrestling, so kids cut weight. There was this freshman who was trying to go down a weight class, and I see him eating a Nutri-Grain bar after practice, and I was like, "Oh, you can't be eating those if you're trying to go down a class." He goes, "Why? They're good for you." I was like, "No, they're not. They're basically candy." He goes, "They're called Nutri-Grain."
They're nutritious.
Right. And I was like, dude, they can name it anything they want. They can name it weight loss bar if they want to. Like, that's not illegal. That doesn't mean anything.
These are the people that believe sugar-free stuff is actually sugar-free.
Right. And so, that's what's going on with Antifa. Antifa is Nutri-Grain, right? Nutri-Grain bars are basically candy.
And then the mendacious part.
That's the stupid defense. The mendacious defense is where they play this game where they point out, rightly, that Antifa is a movement and an ideology, and then they play this false dichotomy game where they're like, okay, so it's a movement and ideology, therefore it can't be a group. And I think the perfect clip that highlights this is we threw in one of Frank Figluzzi, who I absolutely detest, who everything wrong with the FBI is Frank Figluzzi. But he's saying, look, there's no like central office for Antifa. There's no president of Antifa. So therefore, it's not a group. Like, what? Okay, so white supremacy. Frank, let's do that. Who's the president of white supremacy? Where's the headquarters of white supremacy? What's their P.O. box? Where are they incorporated? Right? Like, the FBI has no trouble finding white supremacist cells, right? They somehow, despite the fact that they don't have a president and a headquarters, they're easily located. You can infiltrate their groups and arrest them, but you can't do that with Antifa. Like, CNN has interviewed one of the biggest Antifa cells in the country, John Brown Gun Club. They have chapters all over the country. They are, here's another one, Redneck Revolt, and then what's the Socialist Rifle Organization? Something like that, yeah. So there
are organizations.
There are readily antifiable, and I mean, look on X, and you'll find like Antifa chapters that just say like, city name Antifa. Like, are all of these just fictitious? Are these all run by right wingers are they just false flags? Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, this has been going on for a while. And I mentioned Nick because you were working on this back in the first Trump term.
Oh, yeah.
And Chuck Todd, among others, was bringing on this historian who was actually a member of Antifa named Mark Bray.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so Bill, you use these videos or these clips in some of your videos where basically he has on Mark Bray to hawk a book about like the history of Antifa, sort of lionizing them, being like, oh, these were some of the first groups that stood up against Nazis and stuff like that in Europe during Hitler's rise and all of this stuff. What they sort of leave out is that obviously that this is the roots of this group is with communism, and it was in violence, and then they try to sort of lionize them today to be like, oh, look, they stood up against Hitler. Meanwhile, they were also committing atrocities themselves, and that this is a left-leaning group.
From what I understand, that's why there was actually some popular support for the Nazis, is because everybody hated like the communist activists.
Yeah.
Which, like, you have to really suck if that's what's happening, right? Like, everybody's like, oh, no, I'll go with the Nazis.
Even with the guy who killed Charlie Kirk, like, one of his bullets had, like, Bella Ciao on it, which was like a...
Ciao Bella or whatever.
Pretty sure it was Bella Ciao, but basically, that is a song that was popularized with the Italian Antifa movement and stuff like that.
Which Hassan Piker sings on his Twitch.
Yeah, but somehow it's also apparently it's like archaic, unknown song. When
it's inscrutable. It could mean anything. It could mean absolutely anything.
Well, apparently some of them have been singing it against Giorgia Meloni, the current leader of Italy.
Oh, surprise, surprise!
So I mean, we've seen these people singing this song like at left-wing events. I mean, you can find that stuff on Twitter. So it's not antique.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys remember when I came back from Italy and I had found that little like briefcase with a kitchen knife in it and like an Antifa like newspaper that they had? Do you remember this?
I don't.
Yeah.
It was so funny. I gave it to Corinne, who no longer works with us, but she had a friend who could like read Italian, and he translated some of it, and he was like, "Yeah, this is basically just like communist propaganda."
Yeah.
But that was like the funniest find ever. I found it off in the bushes in Venice.
Jeez.
It was just buried in the bushes.
You just took somebody's like pre-stage attack.
Well, yeah, I don't know why it was clearly some dumb kid that had just grabbed like a kitchen knife from his parents' house or something.
And just to bring this back to Chuck Todd too, like in the video that you have, it's him showing like modern day Chuck Todd from last week, basically saying, "Oh, he doesn't know what Antifa is and doesn't know anything about him, like what they have."
Yeah,
meanwhile,
what even
he
is
had
Antifa?
Meanwhile, he had Mark Bray on to hawk this book about the history of Antifa and sort of promote or at least make excuses or sympathize with their want to use violence to get across their political agenda. Meanwhile, and now today he's not saying it, or he doesn't know what they are. And he even had Norm Eisen on.
I was good. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like the voice of reason, right?
Yeah. He had Norm Eisen on. So the original Mark Bray appearance was on his MSNBC show, MTP Daily, and then he got such a strong reaction from having him on there. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna have him on Meet the Press, like the show that gets way more viewers and is way more prestigious."
Yeah, the National Sunday show.
Yeah, exactly. So he has him on Meet the Press to have like a debate with Norm Eisen. So basically, two people on the left to see like one that's for excusing violence and one that is supposed like against violence. So when you have Norm Eisen as the voice of reason, you are in a very bad place.
Yeah, and the book, by the way, is called The Anti-Fascist Handbook. Like this is not confusing, right?
Yeah.
We know what this guy, but he is Antifa. This professor is Antifa.
These are the ones who also, they'll keep that book there, and then they'll also have like the anarchist cookbook also on their nightside table.
We've had politicians posing with that book. Keith Ellison, who's now the Attorney General of Minnesota, and it's like, oh, this guy's in charge of law enforcement?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the overarching thing here is, yes, the liberal media is very confusing when it comes to political violence, because I think there are times they think it's kind of a righteous kind of thing to do. We can go back to the riots in 2020.
Yeah.
It was a racial reckoning. It was a rebellion. It was, they didn't treat that as a horrific, scary thing. They stood in front of fires and said, what was Ali Velshi?
I don't want to...
Not unruly.
I want to be careful with my words. I don't want to use the word unruly.
Well, there's a fire behind
it. Yeah, and CNN with fiery but mostly peaceful and all of this.
Brutal screenshot. Yeah, with the Chiron and like the inferno.
Oh yes, Omar Jimenez in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yeah, because it was like on
that was in Kenosha.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I know it was like on the banner. So as liberal as Omar is, like he gets sort of labeled with that too, even though it was like on the screen and it wasn't from
didn't
him.
Even
But
say it. Although I haven't seen.
He
the
was
segment.
saying it.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
I mean, the Chiron was the notable thing, but he was trying to
downplay it
spin
as well.
Like they all spun. So this is
and this is also back in the first Trump administration. You had Chris Cuomo going on being like, "Oh, where does it say in the Constitution that protests have to be peaceful?"
Yeah.
And he even says like, "Oh, not all punches are equal. Some of them have like Antifa has the side of right,
whatever,
and basically saying like Antifa has a righteous cause and like basically suggesting they're good guys." And then with the Portland courthouse, he literally argued the fact that after like several weeks of them trying to burn it down, being like, "Oh look, it's still standing," which means they didn't need these federal people here to protect it because it was still standing. It's like, Chris, the reason it's still standing is because they're trying to stop them from burning it down.
Right.
So yes, Portland's kind of ablaze again.
Yep.
Portland
is Portland.
Right. And so, but it is. I did a column last week about how PBS and NPR were two of the most enthusiastic, like, President Trump can't define this as a terrorist group. And then Friday night, I'm in my car, and it's like National Public Radio is doing this whole thing about Assata Shakur.
Yep.
The convicted cop killer with the Black Liberation Army. Their headline on NPR.org was Black liberation activist Assata Shakur has died at 78, and they called her a towering figure.
Jesus.
Yep.
So then on CBS, we have Sunday Morning. Nick comes in this morning. He's like, I got to let's look at Sunday Morning. There's Ted Koppel going, let's explore how the Unabomber had a point.
Incredible.
Yeah, basically they did a segment with highlighting his brother, trying to make amends for turning his brother in, and like sort of making amends for his family with the victims. And they basically just have a sit down and being like, let's take a look at the manifesto. He's like, oh, he had some points about technology taking over our lives.
Wait, they're doing this to the families of the victims?
They had basically
one in there.
Yeah, they had one of it, David Wright, which is basically who has become friends with Ted Kaczynski's brother, and he asked the victim, have you read the manifesto? And like, what do you make of it? And even the victim is just like, he has some interesting points about like warning about technology taking over our lives with AI and trying to trade stuff off. And like, I believe it was Kaczynski's brother who was basically like, oh, it's rather prophetic. Like,
yeah, and it's, he did turn his brother in. He was horrified by what his brother did. But, even in real time with the Unabomber, when they caught him, there was sort of this, well, he lived as he lived out in the woods and he rode a bike, so at least he's consistent. I'm like, the guy sent mail bombs with nails in them.
I distinctly remember when the museum was a thing, they literally had a replica of his shack in the museum.
Incredible.
Well, the funniest part.
The museum sucked.
Yeah.
Yes. The funniest part was the American Spectator said, guess what was in the shack? Al Gore's book.
That checks out.
Yeah,
Al Gore, he was prophetic. He was inspirational to terrorists.
Right.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, I think you made an interesting point on responding to my video talking to Ted Koppel, comparing it to
Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah.
Who at the time, when we were doing our Media Watch newsletter, one of our headlines was, Timothy McVeigh, Newt's protege? Because the big thing they did after Oklahoma City was...
Yeah.
The conservative Republicans don't really believe in government. They're for bombing buildings with kids in them. You know what I mean?
See,
incredible.
And this sort of goes back to what we were just talking about earlier, which is for when they're talking about violence and trying to compare the two, it shows that they want to label the entire Republican Party and anybody with an R next to their name or anybody registered as a Republican are part of like these terror groups. Meanwhile, they put on blindfolds to left-leaning terror groups.
Right. If you're on the right, you either are already doing political violence or you just haven't done political violence yet in service. Or if you're MAGA specifically in service of Trump's agenda. Right. I mean that's basically the way they see this. They're scared. They are scared of right-wingers.
I mean, Bryant Gumbel was literally blaming Rush Limbaugh and Gordon Liddy and conservative talk radio for the Oklahoma City bombing. So, and so we come to today, and what have they aggressively done for the last few weeks but say, you can't pin that on the left, you can't pin that on the left, you can't pin it on the left.
Exactly.
And, when Steve Scalise's shooter was a fan of Rachel Maddow, we never said, well, it's clearly the rhetoric of Rachel Maddow that caused these people to be shot. It's like... I'm not for recklessly drawing this climate of rhetoric stuff, but you can clearly state in the last couple of weeks they haven't slowed down at all. Like
they put the pedal to the metal, if anything.
Especially after what they were just talking like literally with the with Kurt's murder. They're like the whole thing is, oh, we got to turn down the rhetoric, and then immediately when they needed to, they turn it back on again.
Yeah, ICE is the Gestapo. Nothing changes.
And meanwhile, they're getting shot at and all this stuff, and yeah.
So I think we should all say it's not unreasonable to expect the news media to be in favor of enforcing our laws. That should be something they should be for. But everything that they do suggests they don't support any deportations, at least when Trump's doing them.
No, they hate literally all deportations.
Yeah.
They seemed more supportive of deportations when it was Clinton or Obama. You know what I mean? It's like that was okay. It was kind of going on in the background.
Yeah,
we don't have a case in point for Biden about how they felt about that because Biden didn't deport anybody. So
yeah, they're more supportive of deportations when they want to use it to chide Trump, and when Trump wants to brag about how many deportations he did, they'll drag out people were calling Obama the deporter in chief. You guys weren't mass calling him that at the time,
no,
and you guys were trying to downplay what he was doing. But now that he doesn't need to run for office again, you guys can say it, but only in a way to try to score points against Trump or make him look bad.
And also Obama's DHS changed the way they kept the numbers, right? So
Yeah.
if you turn somebody away at the border, that's now a deportation under the Obama administration. So that's where those numbers come from. That's why Obama was the deporter in chief.
Well, we all know that when it comes down to it, the news media always just seem to line up so efficiently with Democratic Party talking points. And that's what we do here. We try to explain to people, here's the Democrat talking point. You've made these videos. Democrats say this. Media says exactly the same thing.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing we do. And if you want to keep up with what we're doing, you got to come to NewsBusters once, twice, 24 times a day. Thanks for listening.